Okay, stop scrolling. Real quick. Most people online give you a price prediction. This guy made a bet. A real one. His own money on the line. XRP at $750 plus by the end of the year. And here's the thing. He's not some random guy in his mom's basement. He runs a family office. Real clients. Real money. So when he says he's 100% certain XRP hits 4 digits, $1,000 a coin, you kind of have to stop and ask, does the math actually hold up? And it goes deeper than a bet. This guy thinks XRP doesn't just go up. He thinks the entire financial system is quietly being rebuilt around it. He calls it his domino theory. Sounds absolutely insane, right? Except some of the pieces he points to are actually real. Verifiably real. So, here's what we're gonna do. And it's something almost nobody else does. I'm not here to tell you he's right, and I'm not here to just repeat his hype. I'm going to put his whole thesis on the table, walk through it piece by piece, and separate what's genuinely solid from what I think is a serious stretch. Because there's a lot of both. Stick with me. Let's dig in. Real quick, from me to you. I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't financial advice. And let me be crystal clear about something. Everything I'm breaking down today is one man's opinion. Jake Claver's, not fact and not mine. We're analyzing his view, stress testing it, not preaching it. Never risk what you can't afford to lose, and always do your own research. Cool? All right, let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Crypto with BHW, where we tell it to you straight with heart. Grab your coffee, get comfy, because today's a little different. We're playing detective, breaking down one of the boldest XRP calls out there and figuring out what actually holds water. All right, first things first. Who is this guy, and why should you get his take even a minute of your time? So Jake Claver runs what's called a family office. If you're not familiar, a family office is basically a private firm that manages wealth for high net worth families. Estate planning, trusts, custody, tax structuring, the whole machine. It's the world rich families live in. So when Jake talks about things like institutional custody, borrowing against your assets, setting up LLCs and trusts before a big price move, that's not theory for him. That's his actual day job. And that's exactly why people listen. Because he's not just a hype account yelling XRP to the moon with a rocket emoji. He talks about the boring grown-up stuff, how institutions actually hold assets, why they prefer ETFs over holding a coin directly, how liquidity really moves. And here's the honest part. That background gives him credibility. It makes him worth listening to. But, and I want you to hold on to this for the whole video, credibility in one area doesn't make someone right about everything. A guy can be genuinely brilliant on estate structuring and still be way too optimistic on a price target. Both things can be true at the same time. So as we go through his thesis, keep that filter on. Respect the expertise. Question the predictions. That's how you actually learn from someone like this instead of just blindly following them. So that's who he is. Now let's get to the part that made me raise an eyebrow. The actual bet. The 4-digit call. Let me lay out exactly what Jake's claiming in his own logic. Okay, here's Jake's big claim, laid out plain. And remember, this is his view, not a fact. Jake believes XRP hits 4 digits, $1,000 plus per coin, by the end of the year. He's so confident he's got a personal bet running with someone for $750 XRP. And when someone asked his confidence level, he didn't say 99%. He said 100% conviction. Now, why does he believe something that sounds so wild? Here's his reasoning, and this part's actually worth understanding. Jake's argument is that Ripple's stated goal for this year is full-scale institutional adoption of XRP. And his logic goes, institutions can't move meaningful money through XRP at today's price. There's simply not enough liquidity. So, in his view, for institutions to actually use it at the scale Ripple's talking about, the price has to be dramatically higher. He literally says, and I'm paraphrasing, that can't happen at the current price, period. He's got this analogy I actually kind of liked. He compares it to starting an old diesel tractor with a shotgun shell. You need one burst of combustion to get the flywheel spinning, and then it feeds on itself. In his mind, XRP needs one big catalyst, one spark, to jump to a usable price, and then it holds there because the utility kicks in. So that's the thesis. Ripple needs it high, therefore it goes high. And look, it's a clean story. It's compelling. But clean and compelling isn't the same as correct. So let's actually test it. Let's start with the parts where I think Jake's genuinely onto something. Because here's the thing. Before I poke holes in it, I have to give him real credit. Some of what he's pointing at, it's not hype at all. It's happening. Let me show you the receipts. Okay, fair is fair. Let me give Jake his flowers, because a chunk of his foundation is genuinely solid. First, the XRP Ledger upgrades. This isn't speculation. This is on-chain and verifiable. The network's been voting on real amendments, things like lending protocols and single asset vaults that would let people earn yield on their XRP, plus a new kind of token that could represent shares in a company with different voting rights. Jake's right that this stuff is real. It's being voted on by validators right now, and it genuinely does expand what the XRP Ledger can do. That's not a stretch. That's just true. Second, his liquidity logic. This part's actually sharp. Jake explains that institutions haven't been buying XRP on the open exchanges. They've been quietly buying through OTC desks and dark pools off the books, so it doesn't spike the price. And his point is, once those hidden pools of supply dry up and demand keeps coming, the price can gap up violently. And you know what? That's a real market mechanic. It's how thin order books work. Credit where it's due. That's a smart observation. Third, the catalysts he's watching are real events. Regulatory guidance on stablecoins from US regulators. Japan opening the door to crypto ETFs. The DTCC, Wall Street's giant settlement house, experimenting with tokenization. These are all genuinely happening. Jake didn't invent them. So here's the honest takeaway from this section. Jake's raw materials are legit. The ledger's evolving. The liquidity mechanics are real. The catalysts exist. If the video ended here, you'd think, wow, he's completely right. Quick question before we keep going. Did you know the XRP Ledger is voting on live amendments right now that could add lending and yield vaults? Most people have no idea. Type yes or no in the comments. I really want to see. But here's where I have to pump the brakes. Because taking real ingredients and jumping to $1,000 guaranteed this year, that's a very big leap. Let's talk about it. So that's the strong half. Now for the part I owe you as someone who respects your time and your wallet, where I think Jake goes from analyst to a little too optimistic. Let's be honest about it. All right? Deep breath. This is the part where I keep it 100 with you, even if it's less fun than the hype. Reach number 1, the timeline. Jake says 4 digits by the end of the year. That's the part I just can't get behind. Even if every bullish thing he believes eventually comes true, the ledger maturing, institutions piling in, stablecoins everywhere, those are multi-year build-outs. He even admits it himself, over and over, that the regulators have been extremely methodical, and nothing has happened quickly. So there's a bit of a contradiction baked right in. Everything's moving slowly and carefully, but the price rockets to 4 figures in a few months? Those two ideas are hard to hold at the same time. Reach number 2, the domino theory. This is where Jake connects XRP to this giant chain, the US bond market, the Japanese carry trade unwinding, a coming depression, and XRP swooping in as Tier 1 collateral to save the entire financial system. And look, I'll be fair. Some individual pieces he mentions are real economic concepts. But stringing them all together into one grand plan where XRP is the chosen savior of the global monetary system, that's a theory. A big, unprovable one. It might feel exciting to believe, but it would be cool if this were true, is not evidence that it is. Reach number 3, the certainty itself. 100% confidence on any single crypto asset? Nobody, And I mean nobody should be 100% on anything in this market. Even Jake, to his credit, tells people take it with a grain of salt. It's my bet, not yours. And that's the smartest thing he says all night. Because the moment anyone tells you a price is guaranteed, that's your signal to slow down, not speed up. And notice something. Jake also mentions other smart voices calling XRP to $15, $20, not $1,000, $20. That's a massive gap between the bulls. And that gap tells you something important. Nobody actually knows. Anybody who says they do is selling certainty that doesn't exist. So where does all this leave you? Sitting there holding XRP, trying to figure out what to actually do with a take like Jake's? Let's bring it home the honest way. Let me give it to you straight, the way I tell a friend across the table. Here's how I'd hold Jake Claver's whole thesis. Take his expertise seriously. The guy genuinely understands how institutions custody assets, how liquidity moves, how the plumbing works. That part's gold, and honestly, that's the part worth learning from. But take his price targets as what they are. One confident man's opinion, not a promise, and definitely not a date on your calendar. The most valuable thing Jake said all night actually had nothing to do with the price. It was this: have a plan. Know what you do at different price points. Understand your taxes. Don't be the person making emotional, last-second decisions in the middle of a big move. That advice? That's genuinely useful whether XRP hits $1,000 or $10. Steal that. Leave the guarantees. And zoom out with me for a second. Honestly, you don't need XRP to hit 4 digits this year for the real story to be exciting. The ledger is maturing, institutions are circling, regulation is forming across Japan, the US, Europe. That's a real, verifiable trajectory, and it doesn't need a fantasy number stapled to it to matter. In fact, the calm, grounded version of this story is the one that actually lets you sleep at night and make good decisions. So don't get swept up in the 4-digit dream, and don't dismiss the whole thing as nonsense either. Sit right in the honest middle, respect the logic, question the certainty, and think for yourself. Because the people who win in this space aren't the loudest believers or the loudest doubters. They're the ones who can hold both, calmly, and act with a clear head. And hey, a couple years ago people wondered if XRP would even survive. Now we're debating whether it's $20 or $1,000. That range alone tells you how far the conversation's come. The direction? Still up over the long run. The pain doesn't last forever. It never does. One bold man, one 4-digit bet, and a whole lot of respect the logic, question the hype. Whatever these next few months bring, green or red, we walk through it together. Clear eyes, steady hands, because that's what we do here. If this breakdown helped you think a little clearer, do me a favor, drop your honest take below. Do you think Jake's right or reaching? I read every single comment. This has been Crypto with BHW, where we tell it straight with heart. Stay ready, stay hopeful, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.